Do you remember the gadgets that once felt like the future, but now sit forgotten, gathering dust in memories of the 1970s? From cameras and calculators to TVs and tape recorders, these were the tools that shaped everyday British life. In this video, we're looking back at 15 gadgets that defined the decade and quietly disappeared. When the Polaroid SX70 landed in Britain in the 1970s, it felt like something out of science fiction. A folding, leather-covered camera that could spit out a fully developed photograph in just a few minutes. No darkroom, no waiting. Families brought it out at birthdays, weddings and seaside holidays, amazed that a memory could be held in your hands almost instantly. People remember the warm whir of the camera, the soft slide as the photo emerged, and the magical moment of shaking the square print as the image slowly appeared. It wasn't cheap, and film packs disappeared faster than pocket money could cover, but the SX70 gave ordinary people the thrill of instant photography. Today, it's a collector's item, but in the 1970s, it was pure wonder, a gadget that made the future feel possible. The Kodak Instamatic 133 was the camera you were most likely to see at British family gatherings in the 1970s. Simple, boxy, and easy to use, it became the go-to gadget for parents who wanted to capture birthdays, holidays, and Christmas mornings without fuss. You just dropped in a film cartridge, wound the lever, and pressed the big silver shutter. No technical knowledge required. People remember the satisfying click of the shutter, the warm smell of flash cubes, and the wait at the chemist's to see if the photos came out. The prints often had a slight blur, red eyes, or someone cut off at the edge, but that was part of the charm. The Instamatic 133 wasn't about perfection, it was about capturing moments. In the 1970s, it made photography affordable and fun for ordinary British households, even if today it feels like a relic of a slower, simpler time. The trim phone, officially the GPO722, was Britain's stylish home telephone of the 1970s. With its sleek, modern curves and lightweight handset, it looked futuristic compared to the chunky rotary phones of the past. Available in bright colors like green, blue, and orange, it brought a touch of fashion into the living room, the kind of gadget that made a home feel just a bit more modern. What people remember most is its signature warbling ringtone, a rising and falling sound that seemed so different from the old metallic ring. For many households, it became a status symbol, the phone you showed off to guests, often sitting proudly in the hallway on its little table. It wasn't always the most practical, but in the 1970s, the trim phone wasn't just a way to call someone. It was a piece of design, a gadget that made everyday life feel futuristic. The National Panasonic RQ2102 was the kind of cassette recorder you'd spot on school desks, in offices, or tucked under a teenager's arm in the 1970s. Portable, reliable, and powered by chunky batteries, it made recording voices, lectures, or favorite songs off the radio suddenly easy. With its silver face, big mechanical buttons, and simple cassette slot, it felt like a modern tool in an age where reel-to-reel machines were still common. People remember pressing the heavy record and play buttons at the same time, the click echoing before the tape began to roll. The sound wasn't perfect, and tapes often jammed or tangled, but the RQ2102 gave ordinary families their first taste of portable audio. Whether used to tape Top of the Pops from the radio or capture family voices, it became part of everyday life. Today, it looks bulky and outdated, but in the 1970s, it was the sound of progress. The Binatone TV Master. Mark IV was Britain's first taste of video gaming at home. Released in the mid-1970s, it plugged straight into the family television and offered simple black and white games like tennis, squash, and target shooting. Using chunky paddle controllers with dials instead of buttons, it turned the TV into something brand new, an interactive screen instead of just a box to watch. Kids remember the excitement of twisting the dials to keep the little white square bouncing back and forth, while parents marveled at how futuristic it felt. The graphics were nothing more than dots and lines, but for many households, it was their first encounter with electronic gaming. Today, it looks laughably simple, but in the 1970s, the Binatone TV Master Mark IV was a gadget that hinted at the digital revolution just around the corner. The Sharp EL8080 was one of the earliest pocket calculators to reach British shops in the 1970s, and owning one felt like stepping into the future. With its red LED display and chunky plastic keys, it replaced the need for slide rules and mental arithmetic in an instant. Students, engineers, and even shopkeepers proudly carried it, amazed that so much calculating power could fit into something you could slip into a jacket pocket. People remember the satisfying click of its buttons, the bright glow of the digital numbers, and the way it drained batteries faster than expected. It wasn't cheap, often costing as much as a week's wages at first, but the prestige of pulling out a Sharp calculator was worth it. Today they seem clunky and oversized, but in the 1970s, the EL8080 was cutting edge, a gadget that promised technology would soon be in everyone's hands. The Sony TC150 was the cassette recorder that many British students and young professionals carried through the 1970s. Slimmer and more polished than bulkier models, it became a trusted companion for recording lectures, meetings, or even mixtapes straight from the radio. With its brushed metal design and clear cassette window, it felt modern and sophisticated, a gadget that hinted at Japan's growing reputation for electronics. People remember its portability, sliding it into a satchel, setting it on a desk, and pressing those firm square buttons that clicked with authority. The sound was basic by today's standards, but for the time it was revolutionary. Suddenly, voices and music could travel with you. In the 1970s, the TC150 wasn't just a recorder, it was freedom. The ability to capture and replay moments whenever you wanted, long before smartphones made that ordinary. The Bush TR-130 was one of Britain's most recognizable transistor radios of the 1970s. With its bold red or black casing, chrome trim, and chunky tuning dial, it became a staple in kitchens, bedrooms, and picnic baskets across the country. Unlike the heavy valve radios of the past, the TR-130 was light, portable, and powered by simple batteries, making radio listening part of everyday life. People remember adjusting the crackly dial to find Radio 1 or the BBC Light programme, the hiss of static giving way to pop hits or the latest news. Its tinny but reliable sound was the soundtrack of breakfasts, DIY afternoons, and long summer evenings in the garden. Today, it feels like a relic, but in the 1970s, the Bush TR-130 wasn't just a gadget. It was a constant companion, always ready to fill the room with music and voices. The Ferguson VideoStar 3V16 was one of the first video cassette recorders to reach British living rooms in the late 1970s. Bulky, expensive, and a little temperamental, it nevertheless felt like magic. Suddenly, you could record your favorite TV shows and watch them later, something unthinkable just a few years earlier. Its large, clunky buttons, heavy cassette slot, and glowing display made it the centerpiece of many modern households. Families remember crowding around to watch the red record light switch on, carefully labeling tapes and rewinding with that familiar mechanical whir. Owning a VCR meant freedom from the strict schedules of television, though at the time tapes were short, costly, and easily chewed up. Still, in the 1970s, the VideoStar was a glimpse of the future, a gadget that promised control over what and when you watched, even if today it looks hopelessly outdated. The Grundig TK20 was the kind of reel-to-reel tape recorder that felt both imposing and exciting in the 1970s. Heavy, with two big spinning reels on top and chunky silver knobs, it turned music and voices into something almost mechanical to watch. For many British households, it was the serious choice before compact cassettes took over. A gadget that promised professional quality sound, even if it took up half the sideboard. People remember threading the tape carefully through the heads, the click of the play lever, and the warm, slightly hissy sound that filled the room. It wasn't portable, and rewinding felt like an eternity as the reels spun back, but it gave families their first taste of recording at home. By today's standards, it's clunky and outdated, but in the 1970s, the Grundig TK20 was the mark of a true enthusiast, a gadget that made sound feel like an event. The Hitachi TRQ-261 brought the 8-track craze into British homes and cars during the 1970s. With its chunky design and sliding cartridges, it offered a way to enjoy continuous music without flipping tapes over, a real step up from cassettes at the time. For music lovers, slipping in an 8-track felt futuristic, and the mechanical clunk as it locked into place was oddly satisfying. People remember the bright, oversized cartridges rattling in glove compartments or stacked beside the stereo, each one promising hours of music. The sound was warm, but sometimes uneven, with sudden clicks as the tape switched tracks. Still, the 8-track gave listeners freedom and variety in an age before digital playlists. Today, it's remembered as a short-lived format, but in the 1970s, the Hitachi TRQ-261 was the cool new way to take your music on the road. The Hacker Sovereign 2 was the premium portable radio of 1970s Britain, solid, elegant, and built to last. With its polished wooden case, chrome trim, and rich sound, it stood apart from the cheaper transistor sets cluttering the shelves. This was the radio you found in well-off homes, tuned to the BBC for news or classical music, its deep tone filling the living room with authority. People remember the weight of it when carried to the garden, the smooth glide of the tuning dial, and the reassuring thump of the bass that smaller radios couldn't match. It wasn't cheap, but owning a Hacker meant you valued quality as much as convenience. Today, it looks more like a piece of furniture than a gadget, but in the 1970s, the Sovereign 2 was a statement, proof that even portable sound could feel luxurious. The Sinclair Executive, launched in 1972, was a British triumph, the world's first truly slim pocket calculator. At just 1 centimeter thick, It slipped easily into a jacket pocket and looked impossibly futuristic compared to the bulky machines of the time. With its minimalist black casing and glowing red LED display, it became both a status symbol and a practical tool for professionals. People remember the thrill of showing it off in offices or classrooms, the sharp click of its tiny keys, and the way the glowing numbers seemed almost magical in dim light. It wasn't cheap, and its battery life was notoriously short, but owning one felt like holding the future in your hands. Today it looks quaint, but in the 1970s, the Sinclair executive wasn't just a calculator. It was a badge of modernity and British innovation. The Philips N2205 was a familiar sight in British classrooms and offices throughout the 1970s. Compact, boxy, and reliable, it became the standard cassette recorder for language lessons, dictation, and school projects. Teachers wheeled them in on trolleys, plugged them into the wall, and filled the room with the warm hiss of tape as students listened to dialogues or recorded their voices for the first time. People remember the sturdy plastic casing, the heavy clunk of the buttons, and the soft hum as the reels spun behind the little window. The sound quality wasn't perfect, but it got the job done, and for many children, it was their first experience of hearing themselves played back on tape. Today, it seems bulky and outdated, but in the 1970s, the Philips N2205 was an essential gadget of daily life, shaping how Britain learned and worked. The Bush Murphy 22-inch was the television that brought color into countless British homes during the 1970s. With its chunky wooden cabinet, silver dials, and curved screen, it became the family's evening focal point. For many households, upgrading to color was a milestone. Suddenly, football matches, royal events, and Saturday night shows leapt to life in vivid shades instead of the old black and white. Families remember the ritual of adjusting the rabbit ear aerials, waiting for the picture to settle, and sometimes giving the set a firm tap to fix the flicker. The warm hum from the back, the faint smell of heated dust, and the glow filling the living room are etched into memory. By today's standards, it's heavy and outdated, but in the 1970s, the Bush Murphy 22-inch wasn't just a gadget, it was the heart of the home.